What's up, tubers? Welcome back to the channel. We're continuing with my mini-series, how I build my model kits. This is step, I know I said 4 and the last one was 2, but we're going to call this 2.2. And it might wind up being more than 4 steps in total when I'm done. Let's just see, and we'll go ahead and get into it. So what we're going to do here is, this is the main final prep portion. We're going to get more into detail, the fine-tuning edges, and doing as much sub-assembly as possible. Hopefully get it on the sticks, or get it ready to be on the sticks and stands to go to paint. So I'm going to try to not ramble too much and just get right to it and tell you what I'm doing and why as I'm doing it. Again, I'm not a professional. I'm not a teacher. This is not a tutorial. Don't do what I do. I'm an idiot. You know, if you see something I'm doing that you might do it differently, or you might want to try a different thing, do that. Right? I mean, it's all about having fun or enjoying the process. So, again, kind of sharing my process. One of the first things I'll do, if you can, get yourself a block. I get them in bulk of number 11s. I mean, I go through these things. I could be a little bit more conservative, and I will repurpose these. This is the used box, your sharps, and then let's see if I can do this without impaling myself. I like to start on the fine tuning with a new blade, and then this one will last for a while. Like you saw in the last video, I used the old one for the rough cut. So, anyways, and then the other things are sanding sticks. You know, you get them at the cheapo stores, the 50 cents or more. They aren't that good. They don't last that long. It's kind of why this one has been cut. I'm trying to get more of the edge that hasn't been used yet. You know, if you can afford it. These little sanding sticks, oh man, I love them. They're not that expensive. They come in varies, you know, different grades. You get, you know, from a rough to a fine, as well as the sanding sponges. This is kind of what I've found that I like, that works well for me. Again, don't do what I do. I'm an idiot. So here we go. I'm gonna do some idiot stuff. As I'm going through it, one of the first things I noticed, I'm gonna build it like that, just the stock engine with the stock exhaust and the stock mufflers and all that, because as I was sitting here looking at the headers and the chrome and attaching them and painting separately, that's an entirely different video altogether now.
It's an entirely different kind of flying altogether.
It's an entirely different kind of flying.
And so we'll save those for another one, and I will do a more in-depth version of probably on this one, where it's going to be stripping, soaking, you know, a rescue of all kinds of different stuff, and like more towards the kit bash stuff. Yeah, I'm having coffee. I really like a coffee. You ever had coffee? You should try coffee. Sometimes you should get some coffee. So, without much doing, I gotta move the light. Sorry if that gets dark back there, but you know, I gotta see. And I usually like to start with the smaller bits first and work my way up, just so that when I'm done, I'm not. You work the other way around. By the time you get to the small bits, it can get a little frustrating. You're kind of like, I'm done. So stuff like this, little bits of flash, little bits of here and there, really easy. Just, you know, boop, pick it off, keeping your knife straight. That's good. That's done. Oh, I saw one little other part. And then we're gonna sand. You know, this is a round part. Try to sand roundly. And I won't really worry about keeping the piles separate so much right now. I'll regroup them all when I'm done. You know, we might just go through this stuff. We'll see. I might just speed the camera up at some point and time lapse all of this portion. This, actually, I found when those are attached to the tree, I don't know if you can see it or not. Let's try this. Hey, get back here. Where it attaches, no, that probably doesn't help. There's a little piece sticking out. If you leave that on, it actually kind of bends your eye to think maybe that's the Vacuum Advance from days of yore. So, again, optional. I'm going to scrape it off there on mine, just because. I'm not going to do a whole lot of detail painting on this engine. The exhaust, you can see that it's a little chunky in some of those. The more you get in there and clean that out with your knife, it'll just look a little bit better once it's on the car. It's not going to show that much, keep that in mind the entire time when you're doing this, that once it gets attached and painted and installed, a lot of this isn't really going to show. So, if you want to get super detailed in practice with, making them, I guess, show quality, sure, do that. But I wouldn't worry too much about it if you're just starting out. Just get, glue it together and put some paint on it, basically. And I've already went through and looked at how, hey, get back over here, how the assembly process of this motor and heads and exhaust works. It's not notched for right or left side at all. It doesn't really matter which way these parts all go on, with the exception of the manifold, front or back, the intake manifold. But I can see that will need to get cleared off. I'll just do it while I'm talking about it, right? Not the outside ones, but this part where the sprue attached. Just shave it down, so it's not visible. It's not going to be seen. And then the heads, take a quick look, and like I said, they're not right or left. They're identical. I don't know if you can see that. Except that one has a big blockage on it. So it's not going to fit right. When you go to, test fit, it won't. Front, rear. Take that one with the blockage. And that's supposed to fit in that little notch there. But since it's blocked, it's going to seem like it doesn't fit. How come it doesn't work right? My engine comes out all crooked. Well, that's why. A little simple, teeny little piece of plastic that you don't really notice will cause it to be all wonky. And then later, like, well, my engine looks like poopy. So, it's just a simple, bam, done, And then any little bits of excess that you can see, sure. That part you can kind of do with get it flush. Hey, get back here. And they're going to jump all over the place. You look out for the carpet gremlins. And that's a little thick, so I'll cut it first and then sand it, and that's done. I wanted to do something with the intake. Yeah, I noticed that the bottom has what you call sinkholes, where it's attached when they make it, where the resin comes in, or the plastic. Trim that down just a little bit if you can, just to make it sit better on there. Again, fitment is the key here, keeping it so that it's it looks pretty tight. And then I'll glue as much of it together beforehand, before paint, as possible, and then fine-tune the little details, with the little brushes later. So one more Come on, give me that. One more little bit. The water pump housing. Doesn't look too bad. There's just one little piece on the bottom. Be careful cutting with these things. I mean, it is a scalpel. You're sharp. Paying attention to also to if there's an attachment point that you don't want to sand it off, and then the thing won't attach and align right, like that. That little nub sticking out of this thing, that's probably intended to go. That's like where the fan or whatever object it goes into, but that is not. So I'll get rid of that one and leave that one. And that's about it for the engine prep. I know those you're going to get done all in one separate color. So kind of as I'm doing this, I'll keep things, the little piles will eventually grow into like that's all going to be shot black, and this will be shot gray or silver or whatever. So scoop that off the side. Move on to the next little pile. And, you burn through it pretty quick. These round ones, round meaning, tubes, exhaust and stuff, you can see the mold line or the seam line. Just take the flat edge of your blade, rub it along. See a little bit of hair come off, little burrs. You don't have to get too detailed on it because, again, most of this is going to be, it'll all just kind of blend together once you paint it. The detail, like I said in one of the other videos, that I am pretty sure I saw it on the Model Muse. If I can find it, I'll link the video below. Where he's talking about when you're doing prep, right here, you probably can't see it, but there's one little piece that I can kind of see it, and then it's fun. If your eye doesn't see it and not bothered by it, then it's probably going to be all right. Like, sometimes you can just do that. Just a little bit here and there, like where the attachment points were. Because all this is going to be underneath axles and stuff. But the side of the muffler, that will be visible. And if you wanted to detail those up and paint them different colors or weather them or whatever, yeah, make it so that your eye doesn't see those hairy edges, That's fine. That's done. And stuff like this, I'll take off the thick points that make it not line up very well, kind of like I did with the manifold and the heads. Meaning just the bottom part, maybe run the knife across it if there is anything sticking out, like that one where the attachment point was. That's just enough to make the fitment alignment a little bit wonky, and that's really all there is to that. The ends, come on, get in there. Or what side was it? This one. You can trim that off a little bit, but sometimes, a lot of times, the glue itself will make that stuff go away, and we'll kind of see it. I mean, I'm just kind of going around, visually going around each edge. Does it look good? How's it, does it please the eye? And this one I can see it just be a simple matter of whittle away, flat edge, Hey, that's not sandpaper. Again, don't do what I do. I'm an idiot. And then, while I'm doing this will also be the time that I'll do any rough work, any cutting or hewing or hacking, like the holes of this. So be a good time to drill those out a little bit, give them some depth so that when you do put them on the car, they'll look a little bit better. They actually already have a nice big shallow spot to them. Shallow, deep, excuse me. And like I said, over and over, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this build just because it is, like I said, a basic. Wow, brain fart. But we'll go through and, you know, prep the stuff up real quick and get the sub-assembly done. Get as much of it as I can done and show you my process. Like right there, see it just sort of shade right off. I'm gonna call that good. You know, I don't worry too much about the edges of that. Bury it in paint. Again, this one caught my eye as it was sitting there. Round stuff. You want to be aware of your sanding too, that like this, it will scratch it. You know, these things will leave scratches. So if I'm going to do something like that, like this one, I'm not sure how it's going to line up. I just went ahead and did the whole thing. See, it didn't take that long, right? Ooh. More exhaust stuff that I kind of wanted to use the headers, but whatever. These are also, you know, not a whole lot of details to them. These I won't sand at all. I'll just kind of quick look, maybe knock off the attachment points, because again, those are just going to go, they're going to get glued. A lot of that you're never going to see. Once it gets glued, primed, and painted, like this, you know, part like the instructions, the way they say to put it together. If you did that and followed it like the whole sequence the way they do, see, wow, you just habit. I'm doing that as I'm talking. That's if you want to, you know, you take your knife and get in there and clean out the springs. If it's one of those kits that's super detailed and you're going to paint these individually, I mean, I'm going to, but they're going to get primed and shot. No, actually, I'm going to glue it all in together and then brush paint it later. Same with this. But the most important parts would be the fitment, like where it sits inside the suspension component. Like, you can probably see the side of it. Yeah, this would be the rear. See, a whole bunch of that isn't really going to be visible. So as long as you make it flat, flush, and fits in there well, you're probably fine, you know. So just that simple. Take a sanding stick, bam, done. Or your knife. I've just gotten used to holding the hobby knife, whittling away. You whittle it or sand it. It's up to you. Not sure where that came from. Chalks. Same thing, you know, visually, how does it look? I will sometimes hog those out just the tiniest bit. See that? That comes from cleaning windows with the scrapers we used to carry. If it gets out of your hand, if it gets away from you, just walk away. Run. I've seen those things. Gash legs open. Blades like that long. Sharp razor blade. So, safety first. Don't do what I do. I'm an idiot. And we already prepped and whined about that Panhard bar. So, let's see, it's kind of going pretty fast. And this one, I'd already gone around it when I was chatting before. If anything, I might, you know, hog out the holes, the contacts where stuff goes, just to make sure that it goes in there well. And that's really about it. It's a frame and body together in one part. So you're not going to get a whole lot of detail out of that. I mean, your brush you will. Same with this. There's not a lot of prep to be done. You know, some of it won't be seen at all. Like that's going to be under the hood. But that right there, if you can see it, there's a little bit of flash. Gone. You know, right that way. And then sometimes I'll hog out the backside a little bit just to make sure that, again, fitment. It's all about how this piece fits where it's supposed to go. This one will go in there. And, you know, well, whether or not you want to attach it and paint it first, or attach it here and paint it, or you know, we'll see. We'll see how that breaks down. I found that sometimes, like this actual model, I'll just attach that like that. The whole thing's gonna get shot black, and then I'll isolate the colors later. But a lot of that depends on the fitment and how it's gone together through this process. Now you get an idea for if it's going to be wonky, or you know, if it's going to just go together really beautifully. And we talked a little bit about that in the last video. There's a little part here where it's kind of ugly, and then the edges, there's flash on both sides. Because that part might be a little bit more visible, just the top of the dash through the windshield, I'll spend a little more time with the knife on it than the sandpaper, or the sanding stick, excuse me. But it's still, you know, you can see as I'm chatting, it goes quick. I mean, that stuff just... And then I'll take the flat edge to kind of plane it a little bit. You don't want to run it too much and put a bunch of scratches, but I'm trying to knock down that line a little bit without putting scratches and dings and crap all over the dash pad. So that looks pretty good. I'll you know, square the edges to ensure that my fit will be nice once it goes in there. Looks good. Done. Moving on. Steering wheel. That'll definitely need a little bit of attention. You know, if you really wanted to get into it, you could take a little drill those out, hollow the holes out to make that chain. See, just as I was talking, spinning it around, I saw a little burr hanging off that once it's painted, I would have seen it. But yeah, you could take a drill or the end of your knife or whatever, and yeah, you could. And I lied. I'm not going to prep this one out because I'm not going to use it. So why bother? That'll go back in a parts pile. And then there you have it. That part is done. Moving on to the last bit, the body. Those are details. You know, I'm looking closer to see. It's not flash because I can see there's 3 bumps there, 3 bumps there. It's like some kind of bolt or something. I'll leave that. And these hood ends, yeah, if you're gonna use them, you know, clean this stuff up. Me, I don't. I don't leave the hoods up on any of my models. I will use this. To me, I see this as, oh, excellent. I have a place to attach for when I paint it. And then I'm going to cut that thing off later. I'm literally just going to snip, done. We'll sit it on the model when it's nice, or you can leave it off to the side when you're displaying it. Because they don't really open well enough to where you can see, wow, look at my hands. Hey, I like coffee. You ever had coffee? We should try coffee sometime. Anyways, they just don't work that well. So the prep that these will get, I already kind of did on the last video, but I'll go through the process. Sanding the edges, treat it like a planer. Not go this way, that way, that way. It'll cut into it. So if you are gonna sand, keep it flat if you can. You know, keep the edge flat, and that will be a lot more uniform later. I don't know if I'm going to use this thing or not. This is part of the custom. I think I will. I'm thinking about even doing a vinyl top on this build. Show you how easy those are. Just some tape, basically. It's literally just tape. But that, I got rid of those little ugly edges, you know, the obvious stuff. And then, like, whatever that sinkhole is, it's not going to be visible, but it might affect the test fit. I don't know how this goes in. I think it just drops right on top of that. Huh. That's kind of neat. So I guess feasibly you could paint that a different color and attach it later. But you're, come on. Probably going to have a gap up there at the top, there's going to be a weird seam. And I already am kind of bothered by that little nick right there. So, decisions, right? So, set that aside for now. Finish these last little 3 pieces that don't need much at all. Just plane out the spots that were attached. Any visible flash. It is a body piece, so, you know, pay attention to not scratching and running the harsh sander over the face of it. And I know that this one also, sanding flash off can be difficult. I know this one, it's body color, but it's also really small and doesn't, it will get taken away by the bumper that it's attached to, taken away visually. The front one, a little bit more attention because it's right in the front, right under the custom bumper. So, and the primer will help when you shoot some primer on this stuff. It'll help to show you some of the bad edges. You know, like if I didn't sand that off, later when you paint some primer on it, you'll see that one little lip right there. And you just sand it off real quick and either reprime it or just shoot the body color the way it is. You know, again, depending on how detailed you want to get. I already kind of did this one on the last video as well. Just simple little whoop, run the knife through there. Done. Those are basically prepped, with the exception of some fine sanding on the actual body parts and the actual body itself. That stays in. You know I got a little do not remove those. It's not that critical for where the hood shuts and closes, but it does help a lot with alignment of issues, or not issues, but where the placement of that firewall and stuff goes. But so I'll leave those for sure. And then visually looking at each corner, and I learned in construction, like painting houses, building, sheetrock, clean windows, whatever, you wrap the wall. You start at the door and either go right or left, and you literally wrap the wall of the house, of the puzzle. Same here. I'll start at one point and then I will wrap the wall with my eyes, going up and around each portion. And you know, that's really all you have to do, and that way you know you've done the whole thing. And I can see, I was kind of working this a little bit before. There's just a little bit of flash hanging out on the ends there. I'll try to cut that as tight as I can without actually cutting too much, because it will be visible. And that's where these guys come in handy. You get into these little detailed spots like that curve. Yeah, you get much more control. You know, you can do it with these. It's just it won't fit in there to that corner. Whereas these nice narrow, thinner strips. And then I'll go through and do that, you know, fine tune the openings. And I already kind of gone over this body a little bit. And the only other prep part will be to actually sand the body, the entire body itself. Yeah, one little piece there. Just plane it down. You know, you want to be careful too with these sanders. They'll actually leave burrs and hairs and dust and stuff. So, you know, you want to be aware of that for when it comes time to actually paint and put some primer on, some color on, which is what this does for the tack paper, tack cloth. That'll come up here in a bit. We're almost done with the main prep. Again, if you wanted to go detailed, there's a trick you can use with Sharpies. And you run a Sharpie along, here's one, the seam line or mold line. You can see that crest of the fender is a little sharper than it would be in real life. Or, see, I don't even see any mold lines in this car. Nice. A lot of times you'll see something where the quarter panel or something, there's a line across there. You can run your Sharpie. We'll just do it on this edge here. Right? You're going to mark that spot. And it's the same as like in body work. It's like a guide coat. You'll know that spot, once you sanded it to where that you can't see the sharp anymore, you've more or less addressed your concern, your area. This one does have a crown on it a little bit. I know because I've had one. It's got a neat little swoop on the end of the car. So I'll actually use the finer paper, not paper, but the sponge, and or a little more detail, a little more control with the smaller guys. And again, trying to not put any scratches or gouges on the body. So the last thing to do, not last, but another thing to do on the prep, if you wanted to deepen your panel lines. Wow, I keep seeing parts back here that bug me on this window. It is an old kit, you know, it's an old mold, so there's gonna be some flash. Yeah, I had to do a lot more trim in there than I really wanted to. Because what's happening is that I'm now defining the line. You know, it's not production. I've had to create that line, and chances are I'm not going to be as perfect as a machine. But we'll leave that for now until we actually prime it. And I'm saying you can. A lot of people just use the back side of their blade. Just be careful. It's really easy too. You can see it almost happened to. It's really easy to mess it up. So right there, it kind of jumped a little bit. You run a big scratch across it. I kind of stay away from doing this. Right there, I just did it. It slipped and came out. I mean, they make tools for it, and I have them, but I've kind of just don't like to do that anymore because it messes it up. I screw it up. Okay, that's pretty much it for that part of the prep, you know, except for the main body itself, which, yeah, I kind of actually, yeah, there we go, I cleaned it out. Not going to do too much, you know, I don't want to overwhelm you. This is a piece I already used, and this is one that is new. It's 3000 grit. Sometimes I'll go as far as, you know, wet sanding, even multiple grits, starting with a coarser and going to a fine. But in the interest of a quick build and basic, all I'm really going to do, I don't know if you can see it, I'm not really even pushing down. I'm just kind of wiping it across it, like I'm literally just wiping the surface, as opposed to bearing down. You hear the difference? You know, there's kind of a gentle, and not, you want to keep it kind of flat, but at the same time forming the surface that you're trying to sand. That make any sense? Probably not. Let the tool do the work, you know. Let the sponge kind of wipe over all of the, wow, look at that bulge in those fenders. Isn't it just a great looking body? And trying to keep it all going, you know, you don't want to run a bunch of circles back and forth and get all crazy. I mean, you can crosshatch a little bit, but I always try to, like, afterwards keep it going the same direction. And then detailed areas like that where there's a script or a door handle or something, you don't want to lose the detail. Don't sand there if you can avoid it. If you really want to protect it, you can put a piece of tape over that to sand out everything else. Like if you're, if you wanted to shave the trim piece off and just do a stock, no trim, cover that and then shave the rest, so you don't lose that detail in the process. But that's an entirely different video altogether.
It's an entirely different kind of flying.
That's what you call a callback or a running gag. Get used to it. That's how I roll, yo. Again, try not to dig in too hard, just sort of letting the tool, I'm the tool, the tool is doing the work. And that's, essentially good enough for a first sand, because it's going to get primed and probably reworked. That's a long piece. Staying with consistency. So I'm like running down that edge first, then I'll run that, kind of working with the body lines that are already there. It's the same with working a house or a car or anything else that you're going to apply paint to. Prep is absolutely key. It's a big portion of it. So now we get to this is the fun part. When do we get to the fun part? As it's been, a lot of this stuff has been, oh man, you gotta be careful, you might have a bad time.
Because what is skiing about? Having a good time. That's right. Now, just a few safety things to keep in mind. First of all, look straight ahead when you ski. If you look down, you're going to fall. You're going to have a bad time. Also, be aware of skiers around you. If you run into another skier, your skis are going to cross, going to have a bad time.
So where's the part where we have a good time?
Sorry, again, running gag. This stuff, a lot of you guys will use it. Usually it comes with a little brush on the end. Yeah. I use these Thrasher chip brush, I call it, the testers, the garbage brush, and it'll just stay in there. And moreover, that's what's in it. It's essentially the same compound. That is the same as this, and it's way cheaper. So that's what I'll do. So I'll take a bit out, decant it into there, and then just work with it. Leave it like that, like you're well. Starting with the engine. The stuff will leave. You can leave fingerprints. Like if I was to touch that spot right there, it'll leave a spot. Whoa, it's potent. That's literally all there is to it. It'll seep itself in. We don't worry too much about that end piece. I mean, you can, if you want. You got some clips or some rubber bands or something. Put that around there. A lot of times what that'll do, though, is it'll spread out the other end. So you gotta be careful when you're using clamps. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to put this thing together. I was about to reach for the instruction manual because I wasn't sure which way this oil pan goes, if it's like that or like that, but it's obvious because there's a filter on it. So, if you wanted to do it detailed and do a different color, sure, but a lot of times I like the tiny brushes. It's kind of my thing.
I love gold.
Yeah, I like gold, but I like painting with the tiny brushes. It's just something that I've done for a long time, and it's, as you can see, it's just second nature. Which direction these go is important. There's 2 holes for the distributor and coil, and 1 notch for the water inlet. So it is mission critical on which side they go on, which side it gets attached, So I'll wet both sides. Again, these were not critical to where they go. Oh, hey, come on, everybody back in the pool. So you can kind of squeeze them together a little bit. See how that happened? To align them, the less gaps, the better. And this glue is It's nice because it, as Adam Savage says on Tested, if you don't watch that channel, you should. I will put a link in the description. It's one of the top rated on my page of great channels. This stuff will hide the flaws. It really does. It'll melt. That's what it's doing. It's melting the plastic together. So if there's a little piece right there, it actually makes it go away. So we're going to use the stock manifold or exhaust manifolds on this, just because looking at how they attach on this kit with those chrome ones will be, that's a whole nother video altogether. So I can brush paint them. You can too. They go on the uppermost, come on, bumps. We'll point that out and explain it more on the other side. So a little bit to tack it into place, set it, fitment, and then a little bit more to hide the flaws, cover the seams, and then that's it, you're done. So those four line up with those four, right? Well, one side, bam, tack it in place, and then, oops, be careful, because I just felt my finger move the other one. Which, that's part of why I like to do this now, because it becomes even more tricky and fiddly when you're doing it if they've been painted. Like if all this stuff has been painted and I'm gluing it together, it becomes, did I put those on backwards? No. It becomes a bit more challenging. Getting the alignment of where the exhaust connects to the engine to the car, that can be tricky. So, whatever. We're going to continue with the rest of the engine portion. Move on to the chassis. This stuff kind of gave me the sniffles. Okay. Lock it into place. Starter. Come on. There we go. Doesn't really have to be perfectly perfect on that spot. It's a visual thing. Once it's underneath the exhaust, you won't really realize or notice exactly where it's mounted. You know, I could spend hours perfecting right where it goes, and that's fine. That's good enough. Am I going to wire this one? I don't think so. We're just going to do it as is. So that means this and the coil, wherever it's run off to. Oh, I hope I didn't swoop it in the trash, because it would be impossible to replicate a round piece of plastic. I think I did. I think I scooped it off into the garbage. Yeah. Maybe it'll turn out. So, you know, be careful. Be careful of your stuff. Yeah, whatever, we'll see. Maybe it'll turn up when all the rest of the stuff gets glued on. So I'm going to put the distributor in place. And if I need to make a coil out of something, you know, there you go. Done. And that's basically how the engine is going to go together. I mean, it is together. Let's glue this one to that, because that was some kind of mounting bracket. I remember we looked at it. Knife. Knife. Drill. Nope, knife. Come on. Test, test, test. Test fit, test fit, test fit. Okay, then this guy goes under here and then on the vehicle. So I want to paint this belt thing separately, just because painting it and leaving it black is a lot easier. So I'm going to try and get this set first and see if I can get it in place. If not, we'll see. We'll see how this works out. Yeah, that looks good. It lines up the valve cover, it'll clear. It hits that, right? So it looks like that's exactly where it needs to go. As I move it out of where it was. When do we get to the fun part? Repeat. Test, test, test. It's literally what this part is, this phase is about. Test fitting, you know, making sure that everything lines up right where you want it. See, I did bump it out of place a little bit. That's fine. Okay. And that will get all one color and be a lot easier to glue it on afterwards. So that's done. Sub-assembly, that's done. See if the coil turns up during this, which I somehow doubt it will. I've been a little bit sloppy in my routine just because I'm trying to move through it. The chassis, a little bit, yeah, I mean, you know, again, you can do it all in individual pieces, or you can do it all ahead of time, which is what we're going to do. We're going to do all of the sub-assembly, or, yeah, pretty much all of it, now. Yeah. Let's see, that one didn't have, I couldn't see through it, so it's not going to work. I did need to go through and hog all these out a little bit. Not too much, because it will, you know, sometimes it'll show on some bits, but I know this one won't. Like the cross member goes right over it. But yeah, it's fine. So it's I'm 90% positive that, because I've done these a few times, that this exhaust will go in and then the suspension. Know what I'm saying? Just because it's on top of it. So you can work it around under it. Like you could put the suspension in first and then but yeah, in fact, let's do that. We'll do it that way. So let's just drop the suspension together. Do the sub-assembly. Oops, yeah, get on my finger. That's important. It's not toxic. It's not toxic at all. I feel fine. It is, and I do get a little goofy from it. You will, you know, if you really feel danger, then maybe wear some gloves or a mask or something. There, cool. That part's done. You know, the ride height also need to set. The front. Let's do the rear. Put the springs in place. So I don't get confused too much. I'll keep the stuff that goes with whatever I'm doing together. That's front. That's the front-ish. Playing 3-card money here. Come on, get in there. Is it really? Okay, I guess we're gonna have to look at the stupid instructions. Bear with me. Sorry about that. So, yeah, that's it. We'll put the, use the instructions. Sure, why not? It's not really clear on exactly where this stuff goes. Like, it doesn't have any notches other than those, and it doesn't really fit in there all that well. So the shocks determine how high it sits. That's not right. Sorry, I'm just fiddling now. Yeah, I guess it just sets on there. Yeah, great design. So, do we want it low? That can be decided now. Or it will be decided now. I feel like that wants to go in there. Yeah. So. This is deciding the ride height. It literally is. So, spend just a minute first. Narrow these a little bit so they fit in that groove a little better. I can feel they're a little bit thick. And then we will get back here. See on the edges as well as the bottom, which is going to drop it down some, make it a little bit lower. As well as on the other end, meaning where the springs are. If I snip a little bit of it off, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it, where those are going to sit in there. Oh yeah, see, those fit way better. They just slid right in. And then for ride height, it's kind of there in that area. Let's start here and with that wet edge, I'm going to take my Thrasher cutters and I'm literally going to cut half a coil out, just like you would in real life, keeping it the same. So I'll start my cut there. And I guess I need the better cutters to be a little more precise. Mid-grade. Let's see where the coil starts. That's where I'll start my cut. Just a little bit. Just a little off the top, please. See? Huh? The car is now lower. So we'll repeat on this side and then hit it on the sanding stick to kind of fine tune the dual height, keeping them the same ish. Yeah, those look fine. It's still a little wet in there from the glue, so I'm not even going to worry about adding more yet. Take a look at this and see what is binding now. So the bottom of whatever that is needs to come out. Yeah, so let's trim that thing. Oh, that actually looks like it might be flash too. So, you know what? I'm going to trim it way down because I'm lowering it. And then some. I snipped quite a bit off there, and I'll plane it the rest of the way. Test fit it. Oh yeah, that's much better. So, it didn't quite line up to where that is. Watch this. Since they're still a little wet, pull those out, and then when I go to attach it, I'll glue it and just push them down until they are in place, and then it's lowered. So here, 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 and here, and that's pretty much all that where that this part will attach. Come on, set it down. Come on, cooperate. Good, there's something still binding. No, not really. But those did creep back up or down. So. I didn't intend to go this far on this video. I was going to do it stock. We're just going to build a stock. But I just don't know if that's even possible for me. I really don't. Like, I have to chop it, hack it, and hew it now. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm kind of working it, massaging it gently to where I want it. Come on. Shouldn't have done it this way. I'm an idiot. Don't do what I do. So now that that's more better, we'll lock it into place. Flood it. And do brush it out. Don't just slam it on there. Do brush it out because it does kind of show. And I'll even sometimes rough sand those a bit later. Okay, and then now we'll see the shocks are probably going to want to go deeper inside of those holes. Tweezers. Come on. This is when your fingers feel really dumb and stupid. And when you're shaking from too much coffee, it's even better. So, this is also another thing I can do. We'll just set it on there. So let gravity help. Set it. And forget it. Literally, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to set it in there and forget it. Moving on. Because you know, you can spend all day fiddling with stuff like that. So to get it to bite, I'll just a tiny bit because I don't want to burn too much plastic off. Using gravity. Using gravity. But there's a big hole there. Again, you're not going to see it once it's painted. There you go. Oh, that's right. Nope. Still have a panhard bar that. Boy, you could spend all day worrying about where that goes and how well it fits. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do one point where it goes in, and the other one where it's supposed to attach. Hope for the best. Well, look at that. Lock that end in place using gravity. Flood it. Kind of use the tool to. There you go. Done. Rear suspension now in place. And one thing I found that with the instructions, you don't take them out and use them all that often, but you know, the way that the sequence of them actually does help if you're going to go through, like, you know, do this part first and then the next part. It gives that part time to dry, you know. Once that all sets up in about 2 minutes, it'll be ready. That's done. Put the exhaust on it. And in the meantime, to move to the forward part of the car, well, you know, hell, let's do the exhaust now. Or, oh no, shoot, that's right. I said I was going to wiggle it under. Oh, probably ought not have done that. Yeah, let's do this now, because I made a mistake. Figure out where it goes, which side it is. I'm going to do it now while this stuff is still loose and pliable. Because it is going to move it. But there you go. So lock that side down. Set it. And to forget it. But did you see how that worked? How I kind of slid it under there? So if you wanted to, you know, paint that up, the detailed job, do it that aluminum in this body color or whatever, it's possible. You can do it. You know, this takes a little, it's just part of the puzzle. Another interesting bit. But I won't worry about flooding and resealing, gluing until I get the other side in. Because the panhard is probably going to be an issue. Oh, I guess it wasn't. Okay, cool. And we're almost done with subassembly. This thing will be ready to go on the sticks. Get it in the booth. Get some color on it. This is the fun part because it starts to look like a thing. You know, it starts to actually look like that's parts of a car. So holding my fingers on it and come back in, and I'm kind of compressing that area on the backside with my fingers just to help solidify it. And then I'll come back again on this side. Hit all these little spots. Like that guy was popping back and forth. So we'll flood this end. And then there we go. There you go. That's the rear portion done. Well, should we? Yeah, why not? Oh wait, no, we're going to use the chrome dual tips on this. So Cool. That's another thing that we don't use. And these have also these really cool, what do you call it, cherry bomb, which, you know, if you wanted to use the other headers and use those, they're pretty cool. They are pretty neat. But for this build, they go in the parts pile, and we can move forward to setting the forward stance, which, just eyeball it. Looking at the center where the wheel is, so good marker. All right, we're back. Battery died. Working with these GoPros is kind of a pain. I reviewed the footage briefly and saw that we'd gotten pretty much to this point. And also I'd been rambling way too long. I was right in the middle of this front bit that is being a little fiddly, but you know, not too bad. Made a decision on which pin to use for the ride height. I trimmed the springs just a tiny bit to kind of hopefully match up with the rear height, and we're gonna put a little bit on there and see if we can't get it to line up, and sub-assembly will be done. Get ready to shoot some color on this thing. Now this one's being a little bit difficult because it's 4 different things and I'm trying to line up all of them at the same time. You know, a person smarter than myself might have done them one at a time. So let's do that. This will be easier to get them into. I'm going to start over, do this backwards. So we will put our test bit, our tack bit there. You can see it's really not that much. Starting to run low. We'll take that little alignment pin, set that into place. Okay, you can see that one was probably the part of the problems. That one just doesn't want to sit in there well. So we're going to encourage it to do this. Smoosh it in there. Come on. Which way does this go? How many times have I done this? There's not a whole lot of glue in there right now. You know, I keep saying that. Just enough to kind of hold it in place to make it a little easier to stick it in and line it up. Is this method going to be a little bit easier maybe? Yeah. Okay, so side wants a little bit more. I'm running out, so I keep I just dip the wrong end in. We're not running out, but it's getting to the corner of the bottle where I'll dip the brush in and I'm actually not taking anything out. Okay, try this again. I'd already kind of gotten through a lot of this on the previous, before the battery died. That's just fiddly. It's just getting tiny bits to line up. Oh. And the fact that it's been cut or changed, altered, affects that. You know, it's going to make it even that much more difficult than if it were just stock. But there we go. I sure hope that's a decent height. I mean, that's going to be really low, and that one's going to be pretty high. I don't know how else to get that at Bart. Whatever. So I'm going to flood it now. Yeah, I feel like that part and that part needed to be even lower, which that's strange. So anyways, part of the whole, my process, again, of doing it this way, you watched me fiddle with this and with this. You imagine how much harder that would be if those were all painted and trying to keep it clean? So that's, you know, this particular model, because of the way this goes together, it's just, you're better off doing it this way. So now while it's still a little wet, I'm using my eye to align it, you know, make sure that it's going to be facing the right direction and ish. So when we do go to put wheels on it, they're all kind of looking better than if they were not. Words. I'm just making stuff up. Eyeball. Just using the eyeball. Looks pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. So, it's literally all there is to that. I'll give it a final compress, you know, to get it all to really marry well. And then also, once you cover it in paint, it's just going to be that much better. Yeah, I'll put the cross member on now, and then just slide the drive shaft in later. I mean, probably should have put it in even before the exhaust, you know. Yep. That's that. Because then this will just slide in later, you know. Paint that up a different color. It'd be easier to do that than to paint with it on there. So that's done. That's done. Let's see how close we got with our exhaust. Not at all. It's, you know, it's not bad. A little bit of rubber band and some clamping. That's good enough. That's fine. That's fine. There you go. This is all ready to go on the sticks. Get primer. Sorry, this took a little bit longer than I thought. But I wanted to get through the whole process just to show you that, you know, the sub-assembly, these little components, doing this now is going to make the final assembly and painting that much easier. It's really not that difficult to once that's in the car, you know, you don't see that much. So you don't have to be that critical about your paint job. I will shoot this whole thing one color, a primer, then I'll come back and hand paint. You know, probably do is I'll paint the whole thing orange, Chevy orange, and then come back and hand paint the exhaust, the distributor, the oil pump, and starter, and sometimes the transmission, just to give it a little bit more contrast. And then once the other components go on it, that's enough color contrast for it to all kind of blend together and have some realism. Like this will get shot black, and then I'll put maybe a little silver here and here for police chrome. Come on, get in there. Fitment, you know, doing this now. See, it doesn't want to line up right. I gotta figure out why. There we go. Okay, so that top one, as well as the bottom one, needs a little bit more attention. I would probably just get the drill out. I don't have it handy, so I'm being kind of rough about it. Caveman. Grunt. But whatever, for display purposes, that's it. That's your sub-assembly. And that a little bit. Same with the painting here. You can get our detail brushes, and once this whole thing is black, you come back and put a little silver on that. Put a little silver, or different tones of, you know, silver, aluminum, a little bit here just to pull out the detail, and then do some, you know, a chipping type weathering on it. And there you go. So there we go. We're gonna put the glue away, get the sticks out, get this thing all ready to put some color on it. And the next process will be the actual painting. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.